thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. I'm starting off with a disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer or a law enforcement officer, and this is not legal advice. In other words, don't sue me. This is just what I have learned myself that I have put together and want to share with everyone. So, we all know that protests are a little scary, especially the first few times you go, because there's a lot of unknowns about them. So, hopefully, this will be some very helpful information. The first thing is, and I started off with a quote from John Lewis, is getting good trouble, necessary trouble, and redeem the soul of America. And I really love this quote, and a lot of people have been using it lately. But I also get the question, what is good trouble versus what is bad trouble? Well, the first thing good trouble is it is planned. It is not something that just comes out of the blue. It is not something that sort of happens to you. Rosa Parks didn't decide to stay seated on the bus just because her feet hurt. Susan B. Anthony didn't trip and fall and have her vote accidentally land in a ballot box when it was illegal for women to vote. Gandhi didn't think it would be just a great vacation idea to walk 240 miles to go make salt, which was against the law that the Brits had put down in India. So all of these things were very planned out and very deliberate. And that's one of the things we need to know about good trouble is it's deliberate. Rosa Parks had several organizations behind her. There was actually someone before her who was a teenage pregnant girl who didn't want to give up her seat. And they decided not to make her the face of this movement because of the optics at the time. Of course, back in the 50s and 60s, being an unwed teenage mother was not something that most people would have felt good putting their support behind. So they waited until they had someone else who would be the face of that. And they supported Rosa Parks in that effort in what she did. Not to take away from what she did, because it took incredible courage for her to do, but it was not a spur of the moment thing. Same with Susan B. Anthony. She had to make a plan. She had to find a way to get to where she cast her vote. She knew that when she cast her vote, she would be arrested, which she was. And I do believe, if I remember right, she was even convicted of the crime of voting. So that's something that we need to know. There's a lot of planning and preparation that goes into good trouble. Also necessary. Is what you're going to do absolutely necessary to make a change? Like if I walked out of my house to all the way to the state capitol in Harrisburg, and no one knew about it, would it do anything? Would it make a difference? It really wouldn't. And, not to say that marches like that can't be good, but if it's just something that I'm going to go do, it doesn't really matter. The other thing is, if you are going to take on this good trouble, it can disrupt your life. Getting arrested can cause you to lose your job. It can cause stress between family members. So, is this something that is worth the trouble to do? Will it move the needle? And then meaningful. Taping up signs at a city hall or something like that is very different from spray painting some innocent shop owner's window with your political slogan. It might be tempting to try and put it out everywhere, but it's not very meaningful if you're just slapping it up on a wall and actually damaging someone's property or someone's livelihood. And that can actually turn people against you. You also need to do more than just talk about it. It is important to talk. What I'm doing now, I feel, is very meaningful, trying to share this information. But if I don't follow it up by actually going out and doing what I'm talking about, it's not as meaningful. Those are the three key pieces to good trouble. In my opinion, this is not any official rule or anything. There are two kinds of protests, low stakes and high stakes. Most of the ones that I've been to have been low stakes. There's a small group in a smaller town like Hagerstown. You don't have a whole lot of people very riled up over the issues yet, though that is definitely coming. So in low stakes actions, it's, for example, most of the protesters at Hagerstown were white, older women. That is not going to get the same kind of response as if it was a bunch of younger black men. That's not fair, that's not right, but that's the way it is. So that does make it a lower stake action because people don't see us as threatening or scary. You still want to keep an eye on your surroundings. You still want to have your situational awareness, but you don't need the same kind of hyper vigilance that you need in a high stake action, and you can have more fun with it. You can be looser and calmer. Just a warning though, any low stakes action can become a high stakes action at any point. All it takes is someone picking up a rock and throwing it through a window, or a policeman who needs to get a quota in. Anything could trigger it to move to a high stake action. So that's something that you do need to be aware of. High stakes actions usually have larger crowds. They usually have law enforcement presence, either because they're required for permitting processes, or the law enforcement has been made aware of a protest and go to try and keep things calm, keep the peace. If counter protesters are there, that's going to definitely ramp up the stakes because the energy between the protesters and the counter protesters can rile each other up. And if public sentiment is really angry, if violence has already happened somewhere else, if everyone's on edge, the littlest thing could set it off. If you're going to a high stakes action, like I consider going to DC tomorrow to be high stakes, only because I think this is going to be a bellwether for how the Trump administration is going to respond to large scale protests. This one should be fairly well attended. It wouldn't surprise me to hear that there are going to be hundreds of thousands of people there. I don't know, but it would not surprise me. So in a high stakes action, you need to ramp up your situational awareness. Make sure both of your hands are free. Keep an eye on what's going on. Be careful what information you share with the protesters around you. At a lower stakes one, I am happy to give out my email address, my name, share the links to these YouTube videos, and so on, just because I'm trying to build community, I'm trying to share the information I have, and so on. At a high stakes one, I don't think I'd be quite so chatty. I would probably be very suspicious, even of the people protesting with me, just because it's more dangerous and you've got to think about your OPSEC, your operational security. Short protests, you can bring more. Like I intend to bring my wagon again. I'll probably have some Ritz crackers again and some bottled water. I'll have extra signs and sign making materials, etc. So, bring a small first aid kit for blisters and such. And all the normal things, wear sturdy, comfortable shoes that you've already broken in. Have layers because sometimes if you start out in the morning, it might be cold and then be hot by afternoon. Hats are good, not just for keeping the sun off of you, but also for keeping a lower profile. Sunscreen every day, all day. And make sure that you don't bring anything that you cannot lose or have taken away from you. So that means no expensive jewelry, no fancy handbags, just the bare minimum, but a little bit more on short protests. Now, for sit-ins and other prolonged actions, which I'm really not going to go into for this presentation, there are a few other things to think about, like tear gas mitigation. If you think that tear gas is a possibility, you need to learn what to do in the case of tear gas. You might want to have cash set aside for bail. Sanitation and meals are something that you might want to plan ahead for, depending on how that's going. You might want to make sure that there's a trained medic on site. There's a lot more when it gets past just the simple protest. All right, so some do's and don'ts. Comfortable clothes. Comfortable clothes you can move in. Some people say wear all black. I personally think all black is a mistake because it makes you stand out once you're outside of the protest. I'm a big fan of just nondescript everyday jeans and a plain t-shirt. If you're going to wear a hoodie for temperature, make sure it doesn't have any identifying information like the college you went to. I prefer like a green or a blue, something muted, something not eye-catching or easy to remember. I'd rather someone go, well, I think she was wearing maybe a green or a blue sweatshirt than have someone say, oh, yes, the one with the bright yellow sweatshirt that said University of so and so on it. Just plain nondescript, nothing to stand out, nothing fancy. I'm going to say it again, comfortable shoes. That is so critical. You got to have comfortable shoes because you might be marching, you might be standing for long periods of time. I don't know about you, but I certainly can't wear high heels for 8 hours a day like I used to be able to. So think about that when you're choosing your footwear. You also might want to think about masks, and masks can be a little controversial. Sometimes they can be used as a reason for cops to stop you and ask who you are. There are even some localities, I don't believe anywhere local, though, always double check, that have made wearing masks at a protest illegal because they want to be able to identify people. However, masks keep you from spreading all sorts of unpleasantness. They're good for helping you breathe if tear gas is in the air. And if it's a disposable one, you can toss it as soon as the immediate danger is over and put on a new one. If you've seen those things that runners wear that are like a stretchy neck cloth, you can pull up above your nose or you can pull it over your head if it's cold. Those are called buffs or gaiters. Those can be very handy because they're very versatile, but they won't stop germs like a medical mask will. Don't wear tight or revealing clothes. And trust me, it's not a moral prudish thing. But if you have revealing clothes, open-toed shoes, those are places where you can get unpleasantness happening because of shrapnel or tear gas or other things if the protest doesn't stay as calm as you'd like. Incendiary slogans. A lot of us love the snarky comments on our t-shirts, on our protest signs. I love it, but you want to think about what you are putting out into the world. And if you have a counter protest going on, they might pick you out of the crowd to harass if you have a very incendiary shirt on. So it's just something to think about. I highly recommend nondescript plain clothing. And anything you don't want to get torn, dirty, splashed with something, even if it's just the person next to you slushy because they tripped and it went all over you. You don't want anything that you can't throw in a washer and be fine with. Situational awareness is critical during a protest. Don't get head down into a conversation or looking at your phone. Keep your eyes moving, scanning the crowd. You don't have to be hyper vigilant all the time, but also don't lose your vigilance. Watch the people around you. Is anyone acting in a weird way? Is there anything going on strange with the traffic pattern? Look upwards from time to time to see if there are drones, which could be a sign of police presence, or people on balconies watching, documenting things. It's not bad for things to be documented, but you just want to be aware of what's going on around you. If a crowd starts running, try to get out of the flow of people. If they're running one way, don't try and run the other way. Don't try and run with them because you might get smush and run over. Try and go to the side. You want to get out of that flow of people. Now, the caveat to that is that you don't want to go down an alley or be separated from the protest. You just want to get out of the way of people moving at a fast clip. Situational awareness is critical during a protest. Don't get head down into a conversation or looking at your phone. Keep your eyes moving, scanning the crowd. You don't have to be hyper vigilant all the time, but also don't lose your vigilance. Watch the people around you. Is anyone acting in a weird way? Is there anything going on strange with the traffic pattern? Look upwards from time to time to see if there are drones, which could be a sign of police presence, or people on balconies watching, documenting things. It's not bad for things to be documented, but you just want to be aware of what's going on around you. If a crowd starts running, try to get out of the flow of people. If they're running one way, Don't try and run the other way. Don't try and run with them because you might get smushed and run over. Try and go to the side. You want to get out of that flow of people. Now, the caveat to that is that you don't want to go down an alley or be separated from the protest. You just want to get out of the way of people moving at a fast clip so that you don't get trampled or trip or what have you. You are going to be photographed and filmed. In our day and age, that's just gonna happen. There's no way that you are going to be anonymous at a protest. It'd be nice if you could, and absolutely, if you want to wear a mask, if you want to wear a ball cap, as much identifying information out as you can, go for it. But there was a protest locally to me last Saturday, and the organizers are the ones who were videoing everyone and put it up on their Facebook page to show how great a protest it was. Now, I don't object to that because I knew what I was signing up for when I got there, but it's something to be aware of that you really cannot in this day and age be anonymous when you go to a protest. There are things you can do to lower your recognizability, but that's not the same. This one is a wonderful thing. Write important phone numbers on your skin in permanent marker. That can be the number of someone that is not at the protest who already knows, has a list of like the legal aid numbers, has your bail money, what have you. It could be a legal aid phone number. Any number of those, write it on your skin in Sharpie. If you have any condition that cops might misunderstand, like being deaf or hard of hearing, or being a nonverbal person, write it on your wrist where they might put handcuffs so that they will see that. If you have very visible tattoos and are trying to keep under the radar, make sure you cover those up before you go to the protest. Always, always have a plan B. If something goes sideways with a protest, know how to get home or to your car. Have a route planned out for that. Have a secondary meeting place in case you get separated from the people you were with. Make sure someone not at the protest knows where you're going to be and when you're expected back so they can start raising the red flag if you don't show up when you're supposed to be. And I want to just read out this other quote. Safety is something that happens between your ears, not something you hold in your hands. And that is so important because a lot of your safety is going to come from you thinking through the protest. What are the things that could go wrong? What are the things that could go right? What do you want to have come out of that protest? By thinking through it, you can address things before they happen and not be stuck in the moment with no idea what to do. Editor Linda here. There's this thing going on social media that says if you're at a protest and it gets violent or messy, just sit down. Please don't do that. That is such a bad idea. All you're going to do is get yourself trampled by other protesters fleeing or by the police who are coming through. It's just not a safe thing to do. It's a lovely idea. I mean, you want to identify yourself as one of the good protesters, right? Don't do it. Just get out of the flow of traffic. Keep your situational awareness and be safe out there. Use some common sense when you're thinking about what you're going to do in the case of a protest going from low stakes to high stakes, like we talked about earlier. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the presentation. Cell phones. Cell phones are another pluses and minuses. Even when your phone is turned off, you can still be tracked and sometimes have a camera or microphone activated. It depends on how bad and who wants to get that information. If you think, Barney Fife and your local PD is the only one that might care, they're not going to be able to do that. But if for some reason you piss off the NSA, well, let's just say that they have resources that most others don't. It's not really one of those things where you have to worry all the time about it, but it's something you need to know is possible. If you're going to bring your phone, turn off all biometrics like thumbprints and facial recognition, and make sure you have a screen lock with a PIN, not one of the designs, but a PIN that's a minimum of 6 digits. The more digits, the harder it is to break it. Some pluses of having a modern smartphone with you: access to your contacts and information, ability to record what's going on if something needs to be recorded, quick communication with organizers, fellow protesters, meeting up with friends at the protest. So you have to evaluate the pluses and minuses, the risks, and decide whether you want to bring your cell phone with you. The only sure way of not being tracked with your cell phone is to leave it at home. And if we get any more in depth than that, we're going into super secret squirrel stuff that is probably not relevant to most protesters. Just decide whether you're bringing your phone or not and go from there. Other things not to bring to a protest: weapons. Just don't. I hope that's self-explanatory, but if we're going to a peaceful protest, why are you bringing weapons? Expensive jewelry, other things that are expensive that you don't want damaged. Cigarettes, vapes that would make those around you be uncomfortable or possibly misunderstood by seeing smoke. If law enforcement is looking for a reason and they see smoke coming up, they could say, "Oh no, someone set a fire," and go in. Alcohol, just another hopefully self-explanatory one. Just don't do it. Illegal substances, cannabis, for example, it might be legal in your state, but it's not legal federally. It gives them a reason. And anything else that's illegal, just don't bring it to a protest. Non-service animals. I love the pictures of the dogs with the little signs on them, dogs not Doge, things like that. But it's just too dangerous for the dog. I love them. I think it's cute, but are they going to bite someone? What happens if people get spooked or there are loud noises? Is a dog going to get scared? Are they going to get aggressive if someone wants to pet them without asking you? So it's something to think about. And of course, your mileage may vary. You can make a different choice, but I personally would not bring my dog with me. Should you bring your children or mentally challenged people to protests? I mean, first of all, they're people. They're allowed to express themselves. They have First Amendment rights to even kids to some extent, within reason under the law, have the right to express what they feel about their government. But at the same time, we want to make sure they're safe. Here are my suggested guidelines. Again, your mileage may vary, but it's something to start thinking about. First of all, I think they need to be old enough or mentally aware enough to comprehend what's going on. A toddler can't comprehend what a protest is about. So think about that ability to understand what's going on when you're deciding what you want to do. Make sure they're capable of memorizing phone numbers. This is incredibly important because if you get separated, you need to be able to get in touch with each other. And if they lose their phone and get to use someone else's phone, if they don't have your number memorized, they won't be able to get in touch with you. I also absolutely suggest writing your phone number on a child. If you're bringing a child, write your phone number on their arm or something like that in Sharpie. Make sure that they have a financial way to get home. If you guys get separated, maybe you have a secondary backup location, but they can't get to it for some reason. If they have the Uber app on their phone or they have a credit card so they can pay for a taxi, that will let them get safely out of the protest area. And I really think it's important that they want to go. I love that parents want to bring their kids to teach them about the democratic process and about sharing their voice. But I think it's important that kids and those who may have developmental issues want to be there because it can be a lot. There's a lot of people, a lot of noise. Some people have sensitivity to conflict and confrontation. So if there are counter protesters there, it can really upset them. Think about what that person wants. Do they want to be there? Is it important to them? And if you do bring them, come early, leave early. And it doesn't hurt to have a second or third responsible adult to help keep things going smoothly. Their voices are important, no doubt about that, but you've got to weigh the risks and make your decision that way. I think this comment from Jordan Peele really sums up a good deal of how we have to interact with the police these days. I think the majority of police are really good people and really good at their jobs, but that doesn't change the fact that with any interaction I have with them, I'm viewed as a potential threat. I mean, that's pretty much how we have to interact with law enforcement these days. It's not great. It's not something that I'm happy about, but people of color and black people and other people of color have been dealing with that particular mindset for as long as police have been around. It's something that we as white people may need to learn, but it's important. First rule of dealing with cops, we do not talk to cops. I'm going to say that again. The first rule of dealing with cops is we do not talk to cops. The only thing that you should say to a cop is, am I being detained or am I free to go? And if they say you're free to go, turn around, walk away. Do not run. Walk slowly and calmly away. If they say you are being detained, the only things you should say are, I want a lawyer or I want my phone call. You do have to verbalize that you are exercising your rights when interacting with law enforcement. I am exercising my right to remain silent, or I do not consent to a search. Those are absolutely your right, and they do not have to, or they don't have to respect those rights unless you say, I'm exercising that right. In DC and Montgomery County, Maryland, you must give your name if asked by an officer who has identified themselves. You do not have to show ID unless they're issuing you a citation. And that means, piece of paper, citation. And if they ask you your name, don't lie to them. Don't give them an excuse. Just don't lie to cops. They're legally allowed to lie to us, but if we lie to them, we give them the opportunity to say, "Oh, that's probable cause." So just don't do it. Don't sign anything that a cop puts in front of you. I don't care if it's a lunch order. Don't sign it. If the cops want you to sign something, get your lawyer to review it first. And this can be kind of hard, especially for those of us that are taught to be people pleasers, be polite, be nice to people. If the cops are standing near you at a protest, just doing their job, don't make small talk with them. Don't ask them how the weather is. Don't answer them if they ask you if you like the weather. No matter how innocuous the question, don't answer it. And if someone tries to incite you to anger or violence, just walk away. Again, with the cops are legally allowed to lie to you, they could pretend to be protesters and try and get you to do something that will let them step in and start arresting people or break up a protest. Keep an eye out for the plainclothes or undercover cops or feds. None of these is like 100% guarantee that this means they're a fed, but it's something to look out for. Look for the high and tight Fed cop haircut, brand new clothes, those shoes that a lot of cops and federal agents wear. They're sort of like the nice loafers, but they also have the really strong soles. I'm sure if you Google police outfitting shoes, you'll get more than a few examples. Keep an eye out for bulges in pockets or around waistlines for handcuffs or guns. Those are just some of the signs that it could be an undercover or plainclothes police person. And of course, one of the scariest things about protesting is the specter of arrest. It really can affect your life. So I can understand why you wouldn't want that to happen. I don't want to be arrested. Have a plan for what to do if that happens. Set aside bail money. If you know you're going to be protesting in a place like Hagerstown, look up what the Hagerstown bail amount is for misdemeanors or whatever they typically charge protesters with. It's usually pretty low, like $50 maybe. Not always, look it up first, but it's usually not very high for this sort of a situation. Stay calm. First of all, you don't want to give them an excuse to escalate. If you're wailing or thrashing or fighting them, they're going to escalate. Also, staying calm keeps you from freaking out. You might have to do some deep breathing. You might have to just take a moment to disassociate. Just a moment, though, because you don't want to be out of it for what's going on. And if they put you in a holding cell with other people, don't talk to them. They could be cops too. Remember that silence is your right. You have the right to remain silent and to not incriminate yourself. Become a curmudgeon. Don't talk to people in that situation. I did want to bring to your attention one thing called de-arresting. It is not something I recommend. It is something that is floating around in the internet, so I wanted to address it so you know what it is. De-arresting basically means interfering with an attempted arrest or getting someone out of custody once they've been arrested. It's not legal. It can definitely get you arrested too if you try and do it. I'm not going to go into any of the means or methods of it, but I just wanted to make sure that people know that term. So if you hear other protesters talking about it, you can then decide whether you want to continue discussing that. Counter protesters are allowed to be there. They have the same First Amendment rights as we do. What they aren't allowed to do is interfere with your legal protest. They can't mix themselves up in the protest. They have to have their own standoff distance. One way of doing that would be catty corner, like different corners of the street or something like that. They are allowed to insist on being within visual and audio range so that you can hear each other shouting, hear each other talking. That is absolutely within their rights because otherwise, how would they counter protest whatever you're doing? They may not get into your face. They may not get up close. They can't, shout in your face, and they cannot assault you or destroy your property like your protest signs. Those are not permitted. The best defense against counter protesters is to ignore them. They want you to get angry. They want you to get upset. They want you to make a mistake because if you lose your temper and take a swing at them, all of a sudden anything they do to you can be claimed as self-defense. Or if you lose your temper and throw something at them, all of a sudden the police might disband the protest and you might get arrested. Don't let counter protesters get to you. Just ignore them. And the other thing is, ignoring them really pisses them off because they're not getting the reaction that they want. If people start crossing the line and start to assault you, that sort of thing, call 911. I know we've talked a lot about not talking to the police, but still call 911. You'll have a record of it, and you'll also have the police come out to hopefully be able to de-escalate. Because again, most cops are just trying to do their job. Most cops do not get into policing because they want to be mean. They do it because they care about their community and want to protect people. But in a country like ours, or a world like ours, really, where there are systematic issues with policing and there are often very deep divides on the political spectrum between law enforcement and protesters, you can't assume that they're going to be friendly. Provocateurs are something else that comes into play. We had that at the Hagerstown protest the other day. Guy in the knit skull cap. They seem reasonable. They just want to talk to you. They just want to ask some questions. And if you can't answer questions, obviously you don't know what you're talking about, right? But what they're doing is they're trying to get you to be distracted. Pay attention to them, not to what you're protesting. Be forced to justify what you're doing instead of them being forced to justify what you're protesting against. You want to avoid people who just want to ask a few questions. And you should be able to tell the difference between someone who's like, I've never heard about this issue, or someone who's like, oh, so you think it's okay to kick puppies because you are protesting this bill that in the very bottom line says, and kicking puppies is bad, even though the rest of the bill says we're going to take all your money and throw people in jail for no reason. That's the sort of thing that a provocateur loves. Same thing as counter protesters, just ignore them. The more you ignore them, the more pissed they'll get, and they'll eventually go away. because you're not giving them the feedback that they want. Here are some resources. There's a lot of really, really good resources out there now with training, with case studies, webinars like this one, webinars like the ACLU one that are about know your rights. Of course, we've got Indivisible, we've got the 5051 movement, we've got Move On, we've got Bernie Sanders Party. All of these organizations have amazing information on their websites. So take a few minutes to go through and look at it. And then I didn't do a slide for this, but I did want to mention briefly digital security. Right now, a lot of people are very new to protesting. They're new to organizing. They're new to the whole idea of becoming an opposition party because we haven't had to do this in a long time. And when I say we, I mostly mean middle class white people. Because trust me, minorities and other marginalized communities, this is not new to them. But for me, it's still very new, and for people like me, it often is. When you go to these sites and you sign up for their email list or you sign up to go to a protest, you have to think about what you're doing when you give that information. Are you giving someone a pre-made list of people to interrogate or go round up later? I mean, if it gets that bad, possibly. So you might want to think about whether or not you actually want to do that. Personally, I'm doing it because I want the information. I'm a glutton for information. I want all of the trainings. I want all of the alerts about protests happening locally, that sort of thing. But you have to stop and decide. You have to weigh the risks of being very visible online or not. And that's one of the same things with your social media. I am very vocal on my social media about my personal beliefs on the Trump administration and how dangerous it is. But that also can make me a target. Am I willing to live with that? I've decided I am. But I don't have kids. I don't have a lot of other people relying on me at this moment. Not that I don't have people relying on me, but it's one of those things where I have decided that the risk is worth what I am doing. And I have made some amazing connections because of it. But it's something that you have to think about. Do you want to be vocal or do you want to go under the radar? And a lot of people who are vocal will misunderstand you if you're not vocal too. They don't understand that a good portion of us are going to have to be under the radar. You can only do so much in the public sphere. And, that's just the way it is. Think about it when you're posting news articles about how awful it is, or you're reposting Heather Cox Richardson, or you're saying how much in a fun one, I don't know if you follow Cats on a Couch, but Cats on a Couch is trying to get more followers than JD Vance, and they encourage people to go and post the word meow under all of his posts. So if you're doing that sort of thing, that does make you visible. Even if you might feel anonymous on the internet, you're not. Just like with phones, if someone wants you bad enough and they have the resources, whatever you do online can be tracked. So that is my presentation. I will let you guys go. Thank you very much for attending. I appreciate it.